everybody. I'm Chris Magra. I'm the director for the study of Tennesseans and war, and it's our mission to interview veterans in our community, to record their stories for posterity, and to make sure that the world has access to those stories. We're privileged today to be in the presence of a veteran, and we also have two guest members in the room. Dave, do you want to introduce yourself just to
Sure.
for posterity?
Sure. I'm David Hearns. I'm the executive director of Blunt Mansion.
Okay, Chad.
And Chad Rogers, retired Army.
Okay. And sir, do you want to give us your name and rank?
Well, there's a story behind this rank. As I go along, I'll tell. But my name is William Phelps, and my highest rank was T5. But I was in a Jeep accident I was in occupation, German occupation, from May the 8th when 45, when Germany surrendered, and this happened while we were in occupation in Lofer, Austria, and changing the governments and stuff there. So I was riding with a staff sergeant who was a sergeant of the guard, and he wrecked a Jeep with me, and I got a skull fracture and a platinum plate in the left side of my head now from it. And so, let's see what was.
Just your name and rank, and then.
But what I was on guard. He just. We was going to put two guards at the rest camp. It was on top of a mountain, that mountain, and a building that used to be a TB sanatorium before the wars. But we cleaned it up and made a rest camp because all our officers were busy with interpreters at the courthouses or who was going to run the government. We were just studying films and stuff of the Pacific, what we was going to run into when we got there. So I wasn't on guard then, but the two guards that he's relieving up there had permission to stay for a week. And he was going to be driving back by himself. And he asked me if I would go with him to be a company to come back. It was after dark. And there were some SS troops in the mountains yet up there yet, but nobody was hurt in our battery or battalion that I knew of. But anyway, we just didn't like to be by ourselves after dark, especially. And because that's when they'd done their dirt, is after dark. And then they'd go in the mountains and in the caves and stuff and hide. We heard stories of it, but I don't know nothing personal about that. But anyway,
can you tell us where you were born?
When we got almost up above the timberline, he hit a patch of ice. It was 25th of July, nice and warm down there, but when we got up top, there's ice and snow on the ground, and he had a slip place, and we had the windshield laid down on the hood and tied down like we did a lot in combats, and the dashboard was the highest thing, no seat belts. And the next thing I knew, I was laying on my stomach on the hood, on the windshield, laid down on the hood, trying to get a hold of something, and my fingernails was scratching the windshield glass. And I never felt nothing hit me. I went on off of front of it, and it went over me. So, the long story short, I wound up I was in Paris in the hospital when they dropped the first atomic bomb. And then from the girl, the nurse, it was my hair was down below my earlobes on the right side. On the left side, my face had longer beard, and my hair, it shaved it, and in Munich. It took me into Munich, Germany, and operated on me. It took most of the night, they said. I didn't know about that. But anyway, later in the hospital, they told me that some of my fragments of my skull was about the consistency of cornmeal. And they had to watch it out for my brain. And my speech was, I had to talk real slow, and then could just, some words I couldn't even say. It messed up my speech on the left side and the speech notes. But that come back and got middle.
Well, if we can jump back, where were you born?
I was born in Cleveland County, Tennessee, near New Tazewell.
1925?
In 1925, June the 15th, 1925, yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that area that you grew up in?
Well, it was this farm country, and we had a pair of mules and about 3 cows most of the time for milk, and chickens were running all over the hill. You didn't know how many you had. You could part the bush and find nests that they'd stole out. You had to throw the eggs away. You didn't know if it'd been there a month or a week or what. but we would always leave 2 or 3 and mark them with a pencil. So if you took them all out, they'd quit the nest. If you leave 2 or 3 in there, they'd come back and keep laying, and then we'd go to that nest every day and get a fresh egg. So, but it was all work labor from daylight to dark, and we was close. I had 1 brother and 3 sisters. Me, there's 5 children, and every one of us, when wasn't big enough to take a hoe in our hand, we couldn't. It's too heavy for us, so Dad had a blacksmith to make us a little boy's hoe. And my dad was afraid we'd cut the corn down, and he'd make us get in the balk between the 2 rows and cut the weeds, and not cut close to. So that's how I was taught to work.
Did you have any family members in the military? Was your dad?
No, I was the only one. My brother Roy took TV when he was a sophomore in high school, and he had scars on his lungs, and they put him in 4F. And I had 1 brother and 3 sisters. You know.
And did you enlist in the military, or were you drafted?
No, I was drafted.
Okay.
Yeah, I was drafted. And
do you remember when you were drafted?
Yeah, I was sworn in the Army in Baltimore, Maryland. Let's see, I was registered on my birthday on June the 15th, and at local board 24, suburb is in Westport, Maryland, suburb of Baltimore, and so. On September the 18th, I was back up here. On June the 15th, I was 18 years old, and on September the 18th, I was sworn in the Army there.
In Baltimore, you said? In Baltimore?
In Baltimore, yeah. And they gave me 3 weeks home to do my business up, and I reported back to Fort Meade, Maryland, and they put us on a train about a week later, and give us Pullman cars, beds, and everything. Next morning, we was on a side
I
train.
want all B wing CNAs.
What's that?
Something for the...
To report to the nurses station immediately.
Something for the nurses.
Emergency. Yeah, I didn't hear that before. I've been here a year. I've never heard that. But anyway.
So how did you feel about being drafted?
Oh,
Were you angry about it?
My grandpa was a deputy sheriff and waited on the courts. And the man of the draft board told him if I would come back home from Baltimore and get on the farm, it'd be no trouble to get me deferred. And I said, well, after the war, I'd be afraid to say hello to some of my buddies, what they'd think of me. I want to fight for my country. But I'd just been married about 5 months, and that was the hardest thing, leaving my wife. you know, that way. But no, I didn't try to evade it at all. In fact, about this, I kind of enjoyed. I miss my family and my home, but I tried to make the best of it. I liked it, you know.
What did your family think when you told them you were drafted?
Well, they wanted me. See, my grandpa told my dad, if you'll have Paul's, we was living in a one-room efficiency apartment thing in Baltimore, and I was working in Baltimore is in the shipyards in Baltimore. And I thought, if I get in them shipyards, maybe I will get deferred. I actually wasn't trying to jump in, but I'd have done stayed home since I just pushed my head, you know. So, but because I was not a local Merlin boy from out of state, they got to be quick, you know.
Yeah.
Way, I guess to get the number, you know. And so, the minute getting on the train that way, the next morning at daylight, we looked out. We was on the side track, way out in the country, and it was from Fort Bragg, North Carolina. And
That's where you did your basic training, was it? Fort Bragg?
That's where I done it. My basic training. Yeah, I had 17 weeks basic training. Then they gave me a 10-day delay in route to go. I was supposed to report back to Baltimore, but they give me 10 days. I could go by home and report on 10 days. You know? And that helped. And then we got there, and the ships was backlogged all the way on up to Camp Standish, and we took 7 more weeks of training, combat training. Actually, what we done, we was firing the 155 houses in the old 1970 models, and we would bring some of the infantry up to the observation point and set an old Jeep or truck or something out there in the field and show them what we could do with artillery to it, and that they thought we was, you know, behind the lines of echelons or something, you know. But we showed them how many rounds it took to kind of make that thing into dust, you know.
Yep.
But,
so you're drafted into the Army.
Yeah.
You go to basic training at Fort Bragg. Are you listening to the radio, and are you hearing the president talk about the war?
Oh, maybe sometimes there'd be something on, but I was too busy trying to do what they wanted to do. I don't remember having a radio in the barracks, you know, where we was at. I don't think I paid much attention to what the radio, I come on the radio. Yeah. I was, real busy, you know, trying to do what commands we had from the sergeants and stuff.
Did you have an opinion about the war?
Oh, no, I wouldn't to kill that basically. Yeah. Yeah, oh yeah. And the more you thought of Hillary from him and thought about him, the more determined he was to try to get him too, you know, that way.
It's a good motivation.
Yeah, I had no doubts and I know now that we had a soldier that never took an oath, and he's up there. If it says in the Bible, you know, if you're good to the Jews, I'll be good to you. And if you're not good to them, I won't be good to you. I'll be bad to you. Well, if you kill 6 million of them, you're not being good to them, are you?
No.
And so I know in Bastogne, there's 7 roads come into Bastogne, and sometimes there'd be 1 or 2 columns of tanks coming down 1 or 2 of those roads. Well, we just had 11,000 Airborne was surrounded with maybe a few stragglers from the 28th and the 106 and a few of them ground divisions. that couldn't get out of it, and he got cut off and all with us. But oh man, I was something to say.
You're welcome.
So we were at basic training,
Yeah.
Fort Bragg.
Yeah.
Did you go to airborne training after
No,
that,
no,
were you
No,
deployed?
I clear this up. I didn't have no airborne training.
Okay.
That's all the basic training I got.
Okay.
And we.
When did you go into the artillery?
We went from, we shot for those infantry boys for 7 weeks. And then the Camp Los Angeles, Massachusetts, put the bunch on the boat, and we went to Camp Los Angeles and got our shots, and then we got on a train and went right down to the busy parts of town on the train went down to the ship, and the next morning, just at daylight, we pulled out of Boston, and we all could get up. There's 23,000 of us on the USS Wakefield, and I was lucky enough to get a place to stand up on the top deck, and I stood up on what the coastline of Maryland. Massachusetts. As long as I could see a speck of it.
Mm-hmm.
How did that make you feel?
Well, I didn't. By that time I was wondering, somebody's on this boat. A lot of us, it ain't going to see this shoreline no more. Mm-hmm. And I say, I actually, I was raised a Christian and I've always been one, but I have not lived it all the time in my life. But that's one time you get down in the face of anybody that fought in real close combat and didn't say, "Oh Lord, help me."
Yeah.
I'd say you were telling a story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And did you go across the Atlantic Ocean to England?
We landed in England, and it was in May before.
May of 44?
Huh?
May of 44?
Yeah. Okay. It was May 4th to June 4th, yeah. Mm-hmm. And at that time, the glider troopers didn't have to volunteer. Jumpers had to volunteer. And they, when we got to England, they put us on a train and took us to a replacement depot. And because 139 men and B battery was a man for every job, they got 11 replacements, new recruits. And I had never seen a glider. I've never hardly been on an Army airport at that time. And
had you ever flown before?
Oh, I'd flown. Yeah, I'd flown.
Okay.
I'd flown little proper Cubs at Mercury and on the 4th of July and stuff like that. But I'd never flown in a big commercial plane before. I went on, but I was probably in grammar school or something when I first time at Russellville, Tennessee, so in Hamlin County.
But never a glider, though.
No. Then when June the 6th comes, because there was so many big ships out there that you could almost walk from England to France, 21 miles across where we crossed that. Some of them ships had 16, 14, and 12-inch guns. We had a little 105. Well, then it was a French 75. And normally we used a French 75. We had that little pea shooter, and we didn't go by glider. We got on Middle East Seas, and the Susan B. Anthony had all of our guns on it and jeeps, and we was on a different ship, and he hit a mine in the channel, and there was all the spaces on the beach and went up on the sand and then let the tide go out, and they couldn't move, and there was nowhere they could have took it and saved the ship, but there was nowhere to put it on the beaches. It all was stuck up, and the tide was out then, and they were sitting. Once they weren't floating, they were sitting on the sand now, and they had to when they got the guns and jeeps off. They chained them and took big 2.5 ton trucks and pulled them. They drove them off till they died, and they put plastic hoses on the carburetors and sealed them, and I don't know, I'd say 4 or 5 feet high, and all you could see, they said, I wasn't out, I was on a different ship, but I was in this part, I guess. All you could see was that pipe sticking above the water, but they sealed out, and they chained them and pulled them up on the beach. What was 2.5 ton Jimmy trucks. They said that I read that sometime or another, and on the books, I think.
So you all came ashore on Utah Beach, is that right?
We was on Utah and Omaha. I get them mixed up, but it's the one that didn't have a bluffs.
Utah.
The farthest up, if you're looking coming in on your right, it had the bluffs. You had to go. No, we had sand where we landed, and so.
Did you have a sense of the importance of this mission? Did
No,
you have a sense of you are being part of something truly great and extraordinary?
I knew there's something scary as the devil about it.
Yeah.
But that's it. I mean, somebody asked me what I was best at, and I said, well, I was best at knocking out of the foxhole when they used to start getting slack, and I started feeling around you.
What was your job on your gun crew?
I wasn't on the gun. I was a duty soldier. That's what somebody discharged. I was a duty soldier. Well, the longest trip I made, when we went to Holland, I was me and one more guy, and the pilot had a telephone, spools of telephone wire and stuff, loaded with freight, and they said they needed a truck driver and asked for volunteers. I said, not to go and drivers, and I volunteered fast, and they picked me, and I took 2.5 ton truck loaded with 105 howitzer ammunition, and that's the M3 at B was, 105 M3. Anyway, it didn't have as much powder. I think we just had charge 4, and the artillery and the ground artillery had charge 7, that way. And so we was close.
You're more close support.
Yeah, we was always right behind the mortars. We see a couple of 1,000 yards where we could hide our guns. We had 6 ounces for the regular ground. They had 4 in training. They went 5.5s. We had 4 into battery. But we had, so we just had 2 batteries in a battalion. We had 2 batteries and a headquarters and service battery. And 3 batteries that are made up of the 907th battalion that way. Yeah.
So take us back to England. Are your officers telling you this is what you're going to be doing? Are you volunteering for certain actions, like dropping behind enemy lines?
Everybody did. I did this to go up one of them things on the practice line, see. And actually, I never did go to combat. WW2 just went to Holland, and those guys but the jumpers and the other battalions went big rather soon. But for some reason, I don't know why, I don't tell you nothing. And of course, you ask no questions. If you did, you wouldn't get no answer anyway. Mm-hmm. So, but our whole battalion went by LSD boat, mm-hmm. and that one that got shot down happened. I mean, got hit the one that hit the
mine.
Hit the bomb out there and sunk. There was I was calling a man. I wouldn't leave me right now, but anyway, that's something. My folks, I had a great uncle lived in Portland, Oregon, and he kept trying to get some of us Tennesseans out there, and he fell on this idea to, like my dad, and say, Ed, why don't you come out, get your family and come on out here. Your kids could work in the fields where they grow beans and tomatoes and stuff, and for the cannon they could pick beans and stuff, and you and Roy was getting over his TB pretty much, and he could kind of work some. He could get a job at something, and you could, the shipyards would need you for sure, but if you're staying back there, all you're doing is just hacking out a living, maybe getting food to eat and some clothes to wear, and you're not helping this country a bit. And Paul's over there fighting. Well, Dad, I got working on Dad. He had an auction sale and sold everything out the wall. He sold every chicken, everything. And Mom sold all the furniture, even sold the vegetables and jellies and stuff she had in the basement that she'd canned. And they caught a train went out there. And you know, they're still there. I'm about the only one back here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm the last one alive. My three sisters and brothers died. Of course, Mom and Dad's been dead a long time. So I'm the only one in the family. But I've got California and Washington and Oregon. Mm-hmm. I could about eat a meal every day, throwing down there with nieces and nephews. They call me more from Oregon and Washington and California now than they do from Knoxville. Just about it. Yeah. Jody sends the pictures out there on a smartphone, you know, to them, and they can't believe it. They think we're manufacturing some of them stores we're sending them out there.
So, your family moved to Portland, Oregon.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And they're writing you letters about this in England. Hey, we're going out to Oregon.
Yeah. Yeah.
What did you think? Did you think then? Well, after the war, I'm going to go to Oregon. We went there. But we come back when I was discharged. We come back and bought us a little house in Knoxville here on Scott Street, out Central Avenue, and my oldest daughter was about a year later. I was discharged on the 18th of October, and she was born on the 12th before. But I almost waited a year before I had a baby when I got home. Mm-hmm. Wow. So I went to work, you know. Yeah, I'll bet you did.
But she was 8 months old, and my mom couldn't. I was the first grandchild. No, well, I was the only one married in that family. There were the children. There was 5 children. So my mother couldn't wait, and her and my baby sister got a Greyhound bus. They come back on a Greyhound bus from Oregon just to see her. And they talked us into renting our house. Here's a 5-room. We put all the furniture in one room and put padlocks on it and rented the 4-rooms out. And I drove a 36 Buick out there.
That was a long trip.
Yeah, it was a long trip. It took about, I think, 4 or 5 days. So we stopped at night.
Have another drink. We're we're waiting. We can wait. So you're in England, and your family's telling you, "Hey, we're going to move.
Yeah,
we're gonna leave. We're selling everything, all the chickens, all mom's jellies, and we're going to move the whole family out the word."
Yeah,
were you angry at your family
No.
for doing that, for leaving the family farm?
No, I was with them on it. No, no, I
It was a good opportunity.
Yeah, if that was happened, I welcomed it. I didn't think bad about that, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
No.
And so your uniform's next to you, sir.
Well, now, that's not my uniform.
Oh, okay.
That's there's a gentleman lives between here and Trenton Highway. What's that road? Anyway, he lives there, and he just comes down here. He's retired from 31 years in the Army, and he comes down here and just visits. And there's singing, some people were singing for us up in the dining room here, and he walked up the hall and seen us cap. And 4 of those years he was in 82nd Airborne, and he didn't say why. It was just 4 years, but he said he had his jump wings and stuff. You know, he was a jumper. But anyway, I was sitting there listening to singing. Somebody come up behind me, and this shirt tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Would you come out in the hall with me? I'd like to talk to you." And so the singing was done over and gone. That lasted an hour, and we were still sitting there talking. And next day, when he come back to see me the next day in my room, and that day he brought me a canteen cup. It's the aluminum cup that you set your canteen in, and you put them in a pouch hang it on your pistol belt, you know. Well, anyway, he brought me just a cup for that. And the next time he come, he brought this. He went to a surplus store and bought that. And I don't know where he got all this stuff, but this coat, all these is original buttons, but that one and that was missing. He bought one of them and put it on there. But I had the ribbons for this stuff here for most of it, but I had never seen a medal. And of course, this one is for France and this one is for Belgium, I believe. But he was a sergeant major, and he said that was one of his jobs. So if anybody got any kind of medals, to see if there's issued their medals.
Do you remember some of the ribbons that you got?
These here, this one. It says on there, but my eyes won't let me see. See, here's my glider wings. That's my glider wings. And this one is, this is a European theater. It's green and white. See, that's, I just had the ribbon that it was like this. See, now that's the president's citation right there.
Do this.
Yeah, this is president's citation.
It's your presidential unit citation.
Huh?
Presidential unit
citation. Yeah, I got that. Yeah, and this and this and what it tells right there, what that. That's good. That's a good conduct for one of them, isn't other than for
World War II right there.
Yeah, and this is for driving a load of ammunition from England, putting it on the LST, and going to France, and going on into Holland, driving it to Holland. From England to Holland, I hold a 2.5 ton GMC pulling a trailer, both of them loaded with
ammo.
With ammo, yeah.
That's
a risky job.
This was for supplying the forces at D-Day.
Yeah, no, that was in Holland invasion.
Yeah.
D-Day is what we call Normandy. But this was in September 18th. It's September 18th, that when we invaded Holland, it was 2 82nd and 101st Airborne Americans, 2 British and a Canadian. I think the other one was
Polish.
Yeah,
Polish.
about 60,000 troops jumped into Holland. We fought there 73 days under Montgomery. And we drank old rotten tea and eat oxtail stew and Irish stew. One of them had just a few potatoes and a whole lot of carrots, and the other one had a whole lot of potatoes and just a few carrots. That's the biggest. And the meat was a coarse grain. I don't know what it was. Somebody, the one when we got around, it was put up in Argentina, and they said it's it is anywhere some wild animals meat or something. I forgot what, but it wasn't beef. They said.
How did you get that GMC truck from England over to Holland?
Well, I had never been in the front seat of one of them at that time. I didn't know what the gears was. I didn't even have a driver's license. Old Sam, my buddy, I met him in a fight. That's another story long. I don't know if you need to hear that or not. But I just come in there. Maybe I better tell you something about that. He is a first cook at the kitchen, and their tent was across the Battery Street from where mine was, and they let us out about 30 minutes out of class early to go and put our dress clothes on and fall out for inspection, and then we go from there to evening for supper and eat with our dress clothes on at the mess hall, and I went to the shower house. There was Quonset huts, the shower house and our living room and dispensary and different things like that. But the rest of us was in tents, about, I think, 12, 15 beds in each tent and perimeter tents. And when you first stepped in the door of the tent, I was the first bunk. And they was made out of 2x4s with straw crammed down in the sheets, and it's a mattress, but I found an old wooden box that something was shipped in, made me a footlocker out of it, and set it at the foot of my bed. And I was sitting on that, shining my jump boots. The jumpers had to fit because they issued us some jump boots and me one of the jumpers, that's the truth, don't you?
Yes, sir.
Well, after Normandy, they was glad to give us those boots because he said, I've had one or two of them say, just a smoke screen that you get us across one of them fields where when they're in the woods, they're thick with Germans. And you shot them smoke screens over there, and we made it to the other side. Yours was worth I don't know what, yours was worth everything to us just if you done that.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that smoke screen?
Well,
what did you do?
Well, if the infantry was, there's a woods there, like in a pasture field or something, and to go from one place where they can hide and cover out in the open, ahead of them, we'd drop a shell. It's like the high
explosive.
Shells. But they throwed up a fog, just like they just make an artificial fog, and they could get in that, and they might run out of it once in a while, but that got a lot of them over without getting shot at because they couldn't see them, But anyway, they'd seen then that we helped them more than we hurt them at all.
Where were you at and what were you doing at that particular moment?
Well,
When that smoke screen's going up, what do you
well,
do?
there's different things. I was. Excuse me.
That's all right. Take your time. You have another drink of water.
I was a duty soldier. I might have been going to the to get with a Jeep and a little quarter-ton trailer, get more ammunition for those guns, or I might have been going to the water point, getting plastic sacks. We didn't use water cans. We used plastic sacks, and they'd hold 5 gallons. But you fold when you fill them, you fold it down about twice, and there's a clamp you put on, and they can drop them a parachute to you. Then there's anything see that way, and when you go. I'd come back to the guns and I'd put off one of them to each one. And if it's cold, you can take your bayonet off your pistol belt and chop you some ice and put it in that canteen cup like you brought me, just exactly like it. You could put it in that and put it on that little pump up stove. Every gun section had one of them little pump up stoves. And you can melt that ice and get you a drink of water or wash your face or whatever you want to do. So that way to shave.
So your main job
I was a duty soldier. If they had I've done this time or two, maybe a message sealed, and they'd want a battery or headquarters battery to get to them, and they didn't want to put it on the radio or something like that it'd be picked up. They'd give it to me, and I'd deliver it over there. See, we had one of the boys that all he done was that way, and he rode a Cushman scooter. But I drove a Jeep and pulled a little trailer, and I'd get 5-gallon cans of gas, or go to the water, the truck that purified your water. It looked like a cement mixer. And it was just turning all the time, see? And you go and you just fill up them bags and you throw them in your trailer just like a forklift or something, you know, stack them in there.
Did you carry a sidearm or did you carry a rifle?
I carried an M1 rifle.
M1 rifle?
Yeah, it's got a little small, it's like about a little bit on a 38 pistols brace.
M1 carbine.
Yeah.
The carbine.
No, carbine, yeah. In fact, I've got one. I give it to my great grandson. He killed a deer with it up on the farm in Cleveland County. I just gave it to him.
My grandpa gave me his.
Yeah, I gave it to him. I loaned it to him to go up and he killed a deer with it, and I gave it to him. He's got it now.
That's excellent.
But,
You mentioned several times trucking supplies of ammo.
yeah.
Were you attached to an ordnance group?
No, I was no. They brought it. Mostly colored drove trucks to the seaport, and they come as far to a certain place and unloaded. And we went there with Jeeps and trailers, let the windshield down, and if there's a hedgerow there, you could get pretty close to the guns. Or else we had to do that of a night, see, and stack them up enough ammo probably to do. Yeah. Would you guess how many rounds we fired in Holland in 72 days?
5,000.
27,600 and something.
And every one of those had to come from the dumps to the forward areas.
That's right here in this book. I can show it to you in a minute. I didn't know they kept no count like that, but when we got out of when they relieved us from Holland, and we finally got Montgomery to let us loose and relieved us, we come back to a farm. We walked back to a farm, probably a half a mile from the front lines, and waited on trucks to come, convoy trucks come to haul us out.
This is a farm in Holland?
Yeah, this is in Holland. It's in Holland. Well, I left the skip somewhere, I guess, between on the 17th or 18th, 17th, I believe it was, of September. That's when we invaded Holland, and we got out of there. We got a Thanksgiving dinner on Sunday after the Thursday was Thanksgiving, and on Sunday we ate a Thanksgiving turkey. And we just got back from Holland and to Marmelon, France. That's an old Fort Marmelon. It was a World War I French Army base that they built in World War I. And
did all of the 101st go to Mormillon, or did they divide you up?
I don't know. Our battalion did. They wouldn't be 11,000 of them in that one fort. I don't know how many there were. I didn't even know where all our artillery was at. But just, for the infantry, we sometimes if the 501st needed us, we backed them up, and the 506 and the 503rd and the 501st and the 3rd and the 6th was we supported all three of them different times, that way. In fact, in Bastogne, we'd be firing that way, supporting one, and they'd all want to come tanks behind us. And, we had to, where you put your trail for the kick or shock, where you put it around, all around, we had to dig that trench all the way around, because the Germans thought, because we had that little M3 short barrel, so we could get it in the glider, and then have, they thought we was tanks. The Germans thought we was tanks, and that's why they went. The tank commander, one of them, this book tells us that he pulled back and went into a cave and slept. We got a good night's sleep, and that gave us time to get when we first went in there, because they thought there was a lot of tanks, and it was so foggy, and it's snowing too. Yeah. And it was so foggy you couldn't see 40 or 50 feet, and so he was afraid to run into a bunch of tanks down there, and there was this there 105 houses,
Well, let me ask you.
A crack from a gun. Well, I guess it's the same too, probably that they used on them, but they mistook them and thought they was facing tanks.
Well, let me ask you. You said you went into reserve at Mormillon. When did you figure out that they were going to let? Well, when did they set you to move to Bastogne? From Mormillon to Bastogne.
Well, when we come out of Holland, like I said, it was the 30th of November when we ate. We got back 1 or 2 days before that, and on the 16th or 17th of December, we thought we was there for the winter. We wouldn't have to go until the summer, because we was going to move our takeoff point from England to France then. So we had airports but we were in no hurry. We was just resting then, and we was going to have a big football team to choose up A battery and B battery and have us a football game for Christmas. Well, I think it was the 16th. There's a 16th when they started. I believe it was about on the 17th. They woke us up at about 2 in the morning and said, "Be ready to roll by a certain time." I've said daylight, but maybe it wasn't daylight. Maybe it was noon or something.
Very short amount of time.
About time to be ready to roll, and the Germans had broke through up in Belgium, and so I was lucky enough. It was raining, and I was lucky enough to in a truck that had a tarpaulin over it. But I've seen some of them 18-wheelers were just like on the road with a big long cattle rack on the flat bed and soldiers standing cheek to cheek, and it just poured rain. And it got cold and it got to snowing later. I don't know how them poor boys, but I was in the back of a truck, and as everybody could get in the back of that. I think it's 1.5 tons or something about that size. It's a smaller truck, and I credit that same old boy that knocked me come out of that tent when I was trying to shine my boots for inspection, and I got sidetracked on that. But
you've been holding this book this whole interview. Did you want to share that with us?
Oh, sure. Yeah, that was our handle. This is Hogan. Hogan, when they started to haul, they run into fog on this channel, and Hogan and one or two of these other boys, I forget some of their names, but I know Hogan real good.
He looks like a big guy.
Yeah, and he refused to go finally, but they last round got him a Maywest. When they got going to across the channel, they got in that thick fog, and all at once their tow rope, instead of being straight ahead of them, it went back over to the side and over the wing, and it was jerking them sideways that way. But there's 4 of our drivers that had the ditch in the channel, and his did, and there's so many boats and stuff going over there. Somebody said we didn't lose a man, damned it. And, but this picture, them 3 or 4 of them laying on the wing of one of them.
Now you guys, they were Waco gliders?
Yeah,
Waco gliders.
C4Js. CJ4. Here. This is Colonel Nelson, and this is us out. But there's all these pictures. This is a gun crew. This guy right here he was a sergeant of the gun. And here's Colonel Nelson. He was a colonel of the top of 907th Field Artillery. That's Montgomery there. But these are all boys. This was the last boy right here, John. He's the last boy that got killed in WW2. He's all their friends, and he was them 3 up there was in his forward observer. This guy, I don't know how he got in there, but this is his picture with his nephew and niece on his last furlough home before they went to England. And of course, that's him there. But
he said he was killed at the Battle of Bulge.
But he was up there directing fire for us, and the 88 shells started falling, and them 2 will both run for the same foxhole, and he started to it, and he thought, no, we're going to be too crowded, all 3 of us now, and he chose one just a little farther. Well, an 88 shell hit in the tree above him, and hit him about the navel and split it open, plumb up to his chest, they said. And he died instantly, though. That's John. But he's shown in several other times. But this man, and there's 1 or 2 of A battery. This is when they first got there. That gal she was on the Dutch underground. And, but, let's see. My glasses, my eyes.
She's one of the few women in these pictures.
Yeah.
Do you remember her? Was she important?
I never met her myself. Okay. No, not. But I heard a lot about her. This is our captain. He's a battery B. 97. He's a captain, And this is his Jeep driver, and this is the pilot of this glider right here.
Mm-hmm.
And they was right there dressed, and after this, when this picture was made, they got in this glider, and this is another. You got a good picture.
Yes,
So here's the plane that's towing this. This is the front of the glider. We're higher. We fly higher than the tow plane does. See.
Yes, sir. Do you want me to hold that for you?
Well, just let me. Well, you could just turn it, and I can tell you.
Yes,
You
sir.
hold it.
Yeah, I can do that.
This is Lieutenant Damerny, and there's Joe Brown with a Dutch girlfriend. And this one of these Volkberg. He was. I can't see their face good enough to tell you which one it is, but one of them's Volkberg, and he is a good friend of mine. And this guy's name right here is Googly Minio.
Googly.
Googly Minio from New York.
All
I'd
right.
say, where are you from? Oh, maybe I better not say it on this. I forgot. This is A battery. This tent. Back behind the lines, they can make coffee or something if they got it or whatever. But that shows in Holland how muddy it was. And these are, I done this overnight. That's either 30 or 50 caliber. Most of them are 30s. And here's two. I bet you our guns are set right in them woods out there somewhere. Well, that's another one of the forward observers that went in a little plane, and he got lost and got a little too far in over the Germans, and they shot him down. But that's the other one. They had two of them. They killed. That guy got killed. That's part of the gun crew there. I used to know part of the name. This is Marmelon, France. That's Fort Marmelon right there, where we left from that place right there when we went to Bastogne. That's where they woke us up and told us to be ready. And that's the kind of vehicles that I had to cover them that I got to ride in. They don't show one of the big cattle truck things. And this is a 105 this way, and he's got a shell fixing to. It tells you down there what you're doing. You're fixing to load that for another one to go away. Burkett, and one of these boys here, what's his name? That's Hogan. One of them is that, and I showed you where he wouldn't go back. What happened to Hogan when they picked him up, which was a boat or a plane, seaplane, they took him back to our field, back where we started from in England. And they got more riders and loaded, and about 4 or 5 days later, just fixed him to send it back. And he didn't have a life jacket, a West life jacket. And he said he was ordered by 2 or 3 officers, and one of them was in headquarters and service. He's above a captain. I don't know which one it was. So this is a direct order, and he knows enough Army law. It says you can refuse to go back into battle if you not got the right equipment, and if you ain't got the full equipment. And that's why I refused. I don't have no life jacket. And they said, "Oh, you won't need one." He said, "I did a while ago, the other day when my glider went down. I'll not go till I get one." Now I think that every high officer and everybody went to hunting for a life jacket, so they got him one, and he went. But after he made that kind of a deal, he kind of put himself up a notch. Everybody kind of slewed him. But that's a weapon. That's him. That's him loading it. See, it's 65 pounds what that weighed, and that goes in there. This is Bastogne, our captain said this is a railroad. I want to build up trestle. They build it high that way for. I guess the ground is soft at times or something. But after Patton come and got us out, they sold us 19 turkeys in there in December or January it was by that time, I think, before we got them. But I've slept, if the wind was blowing one way, I slept on one side of that building, and if it's coming to, I got around somewhere where that would be a wind break for me, and I slept outside that old barn thing.
Cold?
Yeah, we was cold all the time. My feet wouldn't warm out and wrong. Yeah, but when Captain McClone got this shirt, if the 88s was shooting at us, if it cleared the railroad tracks, it hit behind us. But if it was going to hit us, it hit the railroad tracks first. We didn't lose a man in there.
It's a good place to sight your guns.
Not a shell fell on our guns in there. No.
I like this. Use common sense.
Yeah.
My wife tells me that all the time.
Oh, she does.
Use common sense. To all members of the American forces in the Bastogne area, use common sense.
Yeah.
Do you remember when, was it General McAuliffe? Do you remember hearing about the surrender request?
Nuts.
Yeah. How did that, what did your friends and...
That's the only Christmas card I got.
Yeah.
I've got the original one. Me and Slim, the same guy that was we was fighting.
Mm-hmm.
Me and him made the buddies, and I didn't know it, but my mother was a strict Christian and a real player, and she'd write me letters and say, pray and trust in the Lord, and He'll bring you back, and stuff that way. Well, when I'd be out and doing my duty, he'd be at the kitchen somewhere, or maybe as a day off, and he'd look through I'd save, put her in my backpack, my letters, and read them over the next day or two at a time, and then when I get 4 or 5, I might burn them or tear them up. So, but he got Mom's address and seen how worried she was, and he wrote her a letter, and they corresponded, but I didn't know it. They corresponded. Yeah, he never let me see them or answer from my mother, and they I don't know how many letters back and forth that they wrote my mother, but he promised her he'd watch after me. He was from Louisiana, Kentucky, and when he got in high school or got out of high school, I believe he said one. Him and the guy got in a fight. He's a fight. If you said fight, both hands went like that real quick. But he had double bones in his. I don't know one I ever seen in my life. His ribs, and the outside ones come out like this. And if you hit him in them bones, your fist hurt, and he just laughed. Yeah, but anyway, when he come in there, he walked in, and I was popping that leg, sitting on that stool on the old box. It was my footstool where I kept my socks and that kind of things in there, and when he come in, I just when he got in the door, I was the first one on the ride, and when his body got shut the light off, I wasn't looking up where he was going, but the shadows changed there kind of. I looked up and it was him, and he just had a big grin on his face, and I just nodded at him and started to pop again, and I had on that box right beside me, I had a brand new box of oxtail. Shoe polish.
Oxblood.
Yeah. I had a brand new. I opened it maybe well, it wasn't long because I just hadn't been there for a few days, maybe less than a week, I'd say. I had never spoke to him when this is down the chow line on another pork chop or something. But anyway, he took his hand and just hit it in there and reached that way. He had a handful of that shoe polish. And I'd come from the shower place about, it seemed like a quarter of a mile down there and down through that row of tents. But I just come from her and I hadn't put my shirt on. I'd take a shower and I hadn't put my top shirt on, my undershirt. He hit me right there on the neck, right there with that, and come right around my face. And in 15 or 20 minutes, we were supposed to be in having an inspection up there. And it was that far before I could get any more water. I just got around my canteen. And I knew that I was going to have soap and everything to get that off. So when he done that, I stood up and made a haymaker at him, and he just blocked it about halfway to him. And when he did, he hit me right here in the chest, right under my chin. He hit me so hard, I thought the sun was hitting the line. And I went, the Battery Street out there was a wheat field before we moved in, and they made streets and put big rocks, big as his fist and bigger, and then rolled the roller over it and put final rocks. Well, when he hit me, I landed out there in them rocks, almost all fours. When I come up, I had two of them biggest rocks that I could get. And he was standing in the door of my tent and he run back in that tent, and he seen he was trapped. And he was down on his knees trying to get enough to roll out under, and that rock went that high above him, all stooped over trying to get out. He hit that canvas tent and popped like a shotgun, you know. And I know that I couldn't follow him in because I had to make time to get that stuff. I couldn't go. I don't know what that officer done if he's seen all that stuff on my face.
And his name, tell us his name again.
His name is Cartman Williams.
And
we called him Slim.
Slim.
Yeah. He was 6 foot 2 or 3 inches and weighed 200 and some pounds. I forgot now. But he loves to fight. And how come him to be in the Army when he's in high school? I broke away. When he's in high school or just got out of high school, which you said graduated, I forget. He was in a fight with a boy, and the boy's getting the best of him. And he wouldn't take a whip, and he pulled his knife out and cut him. And that ended the fight, of course. And they tried him. The judge said, "You got to yield a day in the pen or join the Army." He said, "I'll take the Army." He was in the Army in peacetime when December 7th, when the Japs attacked us over there. But his term hadn't been up then.
Yeah.
But he went to Cook and Baker School. He was staff sergeant. Got in a fight with some boy under his rank and stuff, and they busted him back to first cook again. He's still first cook again. But anyway, but he come back to in England. It got dark about I'd say 11 o'clock or something at night, pretty close to midnight, and it was just getting a little fuzzy. The sun had done going down. Anyway, and here he come back in agreeing, and that same old dragger, you know. I said, walking up towards me, and I said, don't bother me. I'm not mad at you now. Get away and leave me alone. He said, "No, I come to apologize." He said, he kept talking, begging me. He said, "I'll tell you what, we're going to have, so he said, we're going to have a chicken tomorrow. And I've got it just laid it out to stall down at the kitchen. And let's go down there and I'll get us a nice chicken breast. And I'll make us biscuits from scratch and chicken gravy, just as good as your mom could make it back home."
I'd forgive somebody for that.
Well, I did. when we got down there, but he didn't tell me. Well, then he didn't know about my mom. That was just on the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And but anyway, that when he's off and even when I was off, he's in my tent. Well, his tent was straight across that battery street from mine, but they didn't have to follow up for no inspections or nothing. See, that was his day off, and he come out. He had old dirty fatigues on. And he just looked like a bum almost, But he had to clean up when he went to the kitchen tomorrow. They went to, they changed. They's on the day and off a day when they cooked. When they cooked and fed us out a dinner meal, a noon meal, they just left everything in the kitchen dirty and like it was. And when I left and the new one come, cleaned it up and started to supper then, see.
What do you remember about the food? Do you remember the food being scarce?
Not there. That was before the invasion, see. That was the 2 days from
Trying to fatten y'all up.
In May. Yeah, they was feeding us good, there. I didn't have nothing. The worst thing I had in food was on the boat going over and down in the replacement depot. I actually ate rat manure in my oatmeal.
Oh no!
The first morning, I could see brown streaks in the oatmeal, and it had just about melted it all, And I stirred it up and finished eating it. The next morning, or maybe the second morning after that, it wasn't melted, and I could see what it was.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't eat them over there. I went to the PX and got me a whole box of Milky Ways, I believe, 3 Musketeers or something. And all I do, I go to the coffee out. It was outside the kitchen. I go and get my canteen cup full of coffee, come back and get me a couple of candy bars. From there on over to
coffee and sugar.
Cooling one for a while. I couldn't think of liver cooling now.
What can you tell us about Bastogne?
Bastogne? Well, that was a hard thing. When we got there, I think it's 18th, we met. Well, the Germans were trying to get to Bastogne because it had 7 roads coming in, a good road junction for the big tanks at the 5 4s and 5, whatever they call them, and they was trying to get there so they could get on the seashore there. And that town, I can think of it 10 times and forget it once.
Antwerp?
Yeah.
They're heading for Antwerp, I think.
Yeah, Antwerp, yeah. Well, anyway, the 25th Division and I think it's 106 was involved. They was on each side of us. And we got there first, and they was about 2 miles getting there from Longville. They was coming down the road from Longville.
This is the 101st you're talking about?
Yeah, the 101st went in the city, and they was about 2 hours away or something like that.
The German spearhead was 2 hours.
Yeah. And they was columns of tanks. It was infantry walking on, and some soldiers riding on the top of the tanks. And just coming slow from Longville. I think they already took Longville, but they was on the way to Bastogne.
Mm-hmm.
And our captain and Colonel Ewell of 501st, I believe, or 501st, I think. They got in a jeep and went ahead of us, and when they spotted them, I was up on the hill. They looked at them through the binoculars, come back. We were the first battery. We were before a battery. I'll say that way.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they stopped on one side of Bastogne, and we was almost through it, and we were on two. And set up where you could, that railroad tracks was that, we started firing, and after about an hour, less than an hour, they started retreating back into Longview. That's the way it was. And the next day or two, when we got back to there, they hadn't picked up our dead out there, and the people that was not able, wounded, not able to get up and go, and the ones dead was 80. In less than an hour, we laid 80 of them Germans on the ground with our artillery. We was the ones firing in there, so we were. Because they didn't have anybody to set up. Yeah.
Did you destroy any tanks that day, or was it just infantry, or did you destroy any of the tanks?
I wasn't up with the infantry. I didn't see around miles, but I know what happened, and I know it's in that book right there. If you'll just read about all that's in that. See.
I will.
Yeah, but I didn't see that. We weren't inside of the Germans hardly ever. There was one night, me and Sam, the first cook, me and him stood guard together every night, so either 4, 6, or 8 hours on my guns or on Colonel Nelson's building that he had his officers had for the officers and stuff. We usually drew one or the other to guard, And he was a cook, and I was a footman, or whatever you think that is, duty soldier. I didn't know what it was until I got out and looked at my discharge.
Mm-hmm.
That's what some they called me a duty soldier. Have you ever heard of him?
Sounds like you were a jack of all trades.
I've got it. On my old discharge, it's all for it. Would you like to see it?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
We don't want to wear you out.
I'll sit here till dark and talk to you guys as long as I was.
If you need a break, or
I was nervous. This is the way when they told us take your discharge and hold you the cabin clerk have it put on the record and have you a copy made, and then put your Ellen. This is in 4 or 5 pieces or more. But you can kind of look through it, but I can see enough to see what.
Do you want me to help you out, sir?
Yeah,
Can you get that out there?
Absolutely.
My hand.
I can't even get things out of my wallet, driver's license, or whatnot.
Here, we'll use this.
Yeah, use that right there.
We'll use this.
They got that for me right there. Yeah. You know what that means? I don't know.
It basically just says you're awesome.
Is that what it says?
That's what it says.
Well,
It's her achievement for being a who's who in Tennessee long-term care.
yeah. And that surprised me, and I still didn't know what it was. See if it tells.
Yeah, that's the top of it here. So Phelps, William F. Oh, sorry, William P. William P. And it's got your. Let's see. It's got your battery. It's got your intro and your discharge, I believe.
Does that say duty soldier that down?
Yes, sir. Duty Soldier 3. So they must have different rank, different grades of duty soldiers.
That's what I made 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is the T5? Is it technical?
That's a corporal with a T in it.
Okay, I got
That's
you.
it. Yeah.
So
That's it. Yeah.
So how did they address you as corporal?
No, I don't know if they ever addressed me for anything or not.
Just use your last name and sent you
I
somewhere.
don't remember if I do it.
Gotcha.
I didn't have it on my everyday clothes or my combat clothes, and that's not. I didn't ever ask. I just give me more pay for it done, you know. See, when we first went in there, we didn't no extra fat pay, and we had no good benefits like the jumpers. They had the volunteer, but artillery didn't, and they just put us out in they had 139 already for that, but they don't someone was going to get killed and is going to need more in about a month or something like that before. They drove 11 men, but headquarters and everybody about what they wanted to. But when they went to Normandy, we had 150 we took instead of 139, and that way they had some help on that way.
So you mentioned before when you were discharged, you came home and you had a newborn daughter, and you had to get a job. Were you in any of the post-war parades?
No.
Okay.
No, the first parade I seen down at Veterans Day on Gate Street. Yeah, that's the first time and they brought me a call from here brought me down there.
And after the war, what did you think about the war?
Well, I was glad we won the thing, I tell you that. But, I know that we needed it. We had to. Yeah.
Let me see your slip. I want to make sure this gets back where. Is it on the floor?
No.
Okay. I just want to make sure this gets put back right.
Yeah.
You mentioned Pearl Harbor attack earlier. Do you remember where you were when you heard about Pearl Harbor?
Yeah. It was. We were on a farm, and on Monday, before I knew about it, and we was helping. Well, we had tobacco. They just let you have a allotment of so much tobacco, you know. And we was only allowed to grow 6/10 of an acre. Oh, what did I water? Give me.
Yes, sir.
I don't know how to
No.
All right. The Mackenzies had about a 200-acre farm and a lot of pool in the courthouse up there. And they had about 2 acres, and we'd rent a half acre or an acre or something. I think 1 year is 1 acre, and another 2 or 3 years is just a half acre. And we was either over at their farm working in that tobacco, or we would do work for them on the farm if we had time. If we had our chores all lit and our crops all tilled and everything, and Miss McKenzie was an old widow woman, and she had no way daughter that lived with her, and so they took the Knoxville Journal. We didn't even take a paper. We didn't have my dad never did take a paper. We didn't have no electricity, so we didn't have no radio or nothing. We didn't know it till we was there, and the postman come, and he brought yesterday's paper.
The Knoxville Journal. That's where you read about.
Yeah,
Pearl Harbor.
It's on Monday. After it happened on Sunday, you know. Anyway. So that's the first we know about it, and so of course in '41 I was born 25, but maybe 16 or something like that.
When did you
just
first...
a couple more years, and I had 2, 3, 4.
When did you first learn about the Germans' treatment of the Jews?
I don't even remember when that would be.
Was that prior to the Army or after you?
No, I wouldn't. I didn't know what about it prior to. We had no radio or nothing. I mean, the outside world. What you could walk and get back by supper time as far as we went away from home, and you didn't get to 4 or 5 houses till that time. Houses were that scarce in the country. A lot of people had 200 acres or 150 acres or 100 acres, and it was about 6 miles to New Tazewell from, but we was just allowed New Tazewell Route 1.
After the war, what did you do? What was the job that you got when you got out?
I went into sales because I was real. My nerves was bad and everything at that time, and I'd get a job, but I just went down to get some kind of little job. I was discharged from Kennedy General Hospital with a total disabled, 100% disabled. But 100% disabled him was just $115.
$115 a year?
$115 a month.
A month.
Yeah.
Now it's almost $4,000.
Is it 4,000?
Almost.
Yeah. Well,
$3,600.
Surveyor was in the Navy, and they was launching a depth charger or something, and it went off premature and busted his eardrums. And he said he dogged 100%, and his wife was living. She got some, but he said, we get a check for $2,501. I said, man, alive. But at that time, this Veterans Administration here had cut me down to, I was on the low on 50%, and I don't remember what that was, but when we decided to go to Oregon when Judy was 8 months old, I got a job out there, and we stayed for almost 4 years.
This is you, your wife, and your daughter?
Yeah.
Anyone else in the family?
My other daughter was born when I was there. And she's about 2 years and something younger than my first one, but we stayed there almost 4 years. And she was born out there.
What's your daughter's name?
My daughter's Judy.
Judy
Justice. Yeah, she's got cancer. She took her chemo and got bad news and took her chemo in Lexington. That's where they go take it. And I talked to her on the phone last night. Her last chemo, the number she gave me, I forgot what they called it, was 11. And this time it's 24. So they're changing it and they're putting it on the strongest stuff they can. I don't know. I don't have my youngest daughter died a year ago last July. And I just got one child.
How many grandchildren do you have?
I don't know. Let's see. They each had Judy and Carolyn, my youngest one that died, she had 3 children, and the other had 2, so that was 5 there of grandchildren. These greats, and I've got a great coming in August.
Congratulations.
Yeah, she'll be born sometime in August. I forgot her name, but they've even got her name and everything now. Picture, I've been seeing her pictures.
Isn't that something?
Well, thank you very much for your service, and thank you very much for spending time talking to us today.
Oh, yeah,